Okay, so this talk is called Falling Leaves. For any of you that come to the temple at about 5:30 in the morning, you'll often see monks outside with their brooms in their hand, sweeping the leaves in the yard. It's the duty of a monk to sweep the leaves. And so every morning you come and traipsing downstairs at 5:30, and grab your broom and you start to sweep. Now some mornings there's not a lot of leaves and you can get the job done quite quickly. Other mornings, a couple of days ago there had been a big storm at night time that bringing down a lot of leaves. And so you've got a bit of a bigger job to do. And some days you're sweeping and you walk away, you've done a nice job here, you walk away over here and you turn around and there's leaves falling. Go back and sweep it again. And you walk off, looking behind you. And you start to sweep. I go around the front yard and then as I'm walking back again, it's like, where does leaves come from? More leaves on the ground, all of the time, leaves on the ground. And one day I was over by the shrine hall, and it's me and the chief out doing some sweeping. And I just got this pile of leaves swept up, and a gust of wind came through. Leaves everywhere. Chief looked at me and he goes, "I'm probably going to have to do that again, huh?" Oh yeah, good. You know. And sometimes the leaves are just falling constantly, you know. And this is what it's like in our meditation practice. You know, every day we meditate. And sometimes it's quite easy. It doesn't take long. Not a lot of leaves on the ground. So we start to meditate, and it comes together quite quickly. On other occasions, it takes a little bit longer. And sometimes we just think we're getting there and something else pops up. Where'd that come from? Oh dear. Some days it's like there's a storm. You get out there, it's like the wind's already blowing when you get downstairs. Am I supposed to sweep this? I'm going back to bed now. No, you got to start sweeping. It's almost like it's a waste of time. Sweep, and they're gone. Come back here. It's like, but you persevere. And it's like, you see, when we're meditating, we're sweeping our mind. Because in our mind, we've got greed, we've got anger, and we've got delusion. And these are the things that we're trying to get rid of. So now, we have to persevere, and we have to do this on a constant basis. You see, we sweep in the morning. Now if I go outside at 5 o'clock tonight, there's going to be a lot of leaves on the ground. Why is that? Because I haven't been sweeping continuously. And so the leaves will fall. And And you go out and you go, what monks did they swept? Doesn't look like he swept, there's a lot of leaves. That's because I'm not sweeping all day long. So that's what our minds are like. Thoughts keep arising constantly during our meditation practice and outside of our meditation practice. Thoughts keep arising. So what do? We keep sweeping. That's all we can do, is just keep sweeping. The mind goes wandering. That's like, as I was saying, you sweep up and then you walk off over here. It's like your mind wandering. You've wandered from here to here. More leaves are dropping. So we have to bring it back to the object of our meditation, which, as I said earlier on, is our breath. Some people use the breath. Others prefer bringing their attention to the abdomen. Whatever works, but we have to bring our attention back to the object of our meditation. Sometimes I said earlier on today, sometimes we're not even aware that our mind's wandered. And you sit down to do a meditation session and the mind wanders and we get preoccupied with where it's gone, and we don't even know that we're preoccupied with it until sometime later. It's like, oh my, I've been off in La La Land for the last 15 minutes. And it's a big pile of leaves have dropped. And we've not even known that they were there. So we have to start sweeping again. It's a constant sweeping. Now we get caught up in our sense desires. That's what we were talking about when we were just discussing the precepts. Like going to concerts, going to the movies, going to things. This is our sense doors. Our sense desires open up. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. We have these pleasant sensations. We see pleasant sights. We hear pleasant sound. We smell pleasant odours, all that sort of thing. And we can get so caught up with these that we've gone outside. When we're using our sense doors, we've gone outside of ourselves. We're not inside, we're not looking inward, we're looking outward. We start thinking about the past, like I said with music. Music can take you back in time. I used to be really clever when they used to have these competitions, on the radios, like, name that song, what year was it? And I used to be able to listen to the song. The song would take me back to a place. Now I used to travel a lot. So it would take me back to a place. Where did I first hear that song? And from working out where I was, I could work out what year it was that that song came out. And then I could ring up the radio station and try and make it. Of course, you can never get through, it's rigged. But you'd ring it, and I would. I'd have the year correct. So even things like listening to music and stuff, it starts our mind, it takes our mind backwards. We start thinking about the past, or we start to think about the future. And the past is really fake. We have a tendency, we think about the past, and it's like we almost romanticize the past. Isn't it wonderful? Oh, I wish I could go back there. Wasn't that a great place? You try going back 20 years later and see, it doesn't look anything like it does in your mind. And of course we think about the future. The future's so uncertain. The only certainty we have is we're going to die. The rest of it's very uncertain. As I say, as lay people, we have to make some plans. But, we all know that not all of our plans come to fruition. But this is what happens when we start to think. And we need to stay constantly in the present, or to the best of our ability. As I say, with lay people, that's a little bit difficult, because you've got to plan, you've got school holidays coming up, you've got to start thinking about, And what am I going to do with the little horrors for the next 6 weeks? How am I going to keep them entertained? And so there's a certain amount of planning, but not when we're meditating. When we're meditating, we do not need to think about the past, we do not need to think about the future. We need to be in the present moment. I keep sweeping. So mindfulness is something we're supposed to try and cultivate all the time, not just during our formal meditation practice. But so often we're chasing after sense desires. I knew a monk, and he used to watch these Thai soap operas on the telly. Now, I don't understand why anybody would want to watch a soap opera at all, to be honest. I mean, they're just the most miserable things on the television. Apart from reality TV, which is even worse than soap operas. And he used to say to me, oh no, he said, it's not for entertainment, he said, it's for dharma. He said, seeing, the suffering of these persons, like, get off, you're enjoying watching soap operas. Not using it for dharma. But we start to watch television now, and we just get taken away. Also idle chatter. The Buddha, there was one time he was outside the hall and the monks were chatting, and they were chatting about some king and the king's army and all this sort of stuff. And the Buddha stood outside the door for a few minutes, and then he knocked on the door, very polite about it, wandered on home. So monks, he said, what was it you were talking about? As I was coming over. And he said, we were talking about this king and his army, and the Buddha said, that's a base talk, it's low talk, animal talk. He said, this is not the talk of a monk. He said, when monks get together, monks should discuss the Dharma, not idle chatter. Because idle chatter takes us away from the Dharma. We start discussing politics. There's one guy comes here fairly frequently, and often the first thing he says to me, GST's coming in shortly. So? GST's coming in shortly, big deal. Nothing you can do about it, got to pay it. No use moaning to me about it. But he wants to engage me in idle chatter. And quite frankly, I'm not that interested in idle chatter. Sometimes you have to have ordinary conversations with the way people run. We don't get caught up in politics. We're not supposed to get caught up in politics and stuff like that. Actually, when we get caught up in politics, we start getting caught up in arguments. You can see just how bad it can get. Start discussing politics, and then all of a sudden, this person thinks you're an idiot because you support that particular party, and this person thinks you need your head read by a psychiatrist because you like that politician. It's not worth it. Better off to stick to conversations that you know about. In the Satipatthana Samyutta, there's the story of the hawk and the quail. The quail's out in the middle of a field somewhere one day, and the hawk swoops down and picks it up. The old quail was like complaining like anything. If I'd have been in my proper place, you would never have been able to get me. It's like, stupid me to be caught out in the middle of an open field, thick hawk. And the hawk said, he said, you think you're smart? He said, you reckon I couldn't have got you? And God goes, no. He says, not if I'd have stayed in my proper place. So the hawk takes the quail to a field that's been ploughed up, and there's big clumps of dirt everywhere, And off it flies, and the quail hops up on top of the dirt, stupid hawk. Can't get me. A hawk comes swooping on down, talons out, just about to get the quail. The quail hops down off the clod of dirt and I was behind, and the hawk smashes into the clod. Does some mischief. Because the quail's now in its correct place. Where it's difficult for a hawk to get at it. It's got plenty of coverage, plenty of place to hide. And it's the same with a monk. A monk has his proper place of dwelling, and his proper place of dwelling is in the Dharma. And when we start discussing politics and things like that, we are outside of our natural place, and so we have to be very, very careful about where we are, otherwise we get caught up. And of course, once we get caught up, we stop thinking about the Dharma. We start thinking about worldly things. Distracts us from our goal. So people often say it's not necessary to have the Dharma to attain enlightenment. Well, that's a load of rubbish. To be perfectly frank. Dharma is the ultimate truth. So of course Dharma is always there. I said earlier that the Buddha rediscovers the Dharma. Is that microphone turned on? Okay. No. The Buddha rediscovers the Dhamma, but the Dhamma's never been lost. It's always there. We just can't find it. It still exists and becomes very corrupted over time. And so, a lot of people that don't even come close to the truth. Such a big corruption of the Dhamma. And you can hear it sometimes when you go online. And you see some of the Dharma that's on the internet. It's like, where did that come from? It's like, the Buddha said this. No, he didn't. There's so much rubbish out there on the internet. And people believe it. I even have people telling me how I shouldn't try and live too much according to the Vinaya. How I should give this, the monks' rules. I should give this away. Don't bother about that one. That one's rubbish. You shouldn't much. Lay people trying to tell a monk what rules he should break. And they want me to, put on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, wear a piece of orange around my arm, and sit in the pub explaining to them what the Buddha said. Modern Buddhism. So we see this corruption taking place, and a lot of the monks, unfortunately, have got a tendency to, in order to please the laity, they're quite happy to set aside the Vinaya. So they can become more laity friendly, if you like. And it just corrupts the Dharma completely, because we end up being no different to the laity. And the laity expect us to be different. Okay, I get in trouble sometimes, because I wave at people. And in some countries, monks don't wave. But I do. But I don't mind waving. Especially, I see little kids wave at me. What am I going to do? Frown at them? Don't wave at me, I'm a monk. How to drive the children away from Buddhism. We're allowed to smile, But, some people, they really do this. You monks, why can't, eating after 12 o'clock, that's okay. Why don't you cook your own food? Why don't you grow your own food? Why don't I get a job? Go and work at the market gardens, perhaps, It's like, we don't do that. It's against, in the Theravada tradition, it's against the rules. monk's not allowed to grow his own food. Monk's not allowed to cook his own food. I cook my own food, then you guys don't need to come. So no dana for you, no chance of making merit. It's actually selfish of me to grow my own food and to cook it. Because I take the opportunity away from the laity to do these things for me. But people say, oh, you're such a hindrance on the laity. I don't see them complaining a lot when they come, oh, go feed those flaming monks and go, come on, blimey. I don't see that. I see happy, smiley faces. So I figure that they're enjoying themselves. So, when a fully awakened one comes into the world, he rediscovers the Dharma. That's the beauty of this. The Buddha rediscovered the Dharma, and being a Sammasan Buddha, as opposed to a Pacceka Buddha, he was able to teach the Dharma. And the people he teaches the Dharma to can comprehend the Dharma. And when you comprehend the Dharma, you put the Dharma into practice. So, we've heard the Four Noble Truths. You know? We see that lifetime after lifetime we've struggled. Life is, generally speaking, quite unsatisfactory. I mean, I'm sitting here with glasses and my eyes are getting old, which I guess means I'm probably getting old too. I never thought that I'd go past being a teenager. I figured 13 to 19, yeah. I was always going to be in that age range. Oh, 54. I wasn't expecting that. I'm getting old. I'm probably going to die one day. Oh well, what goes on until then? But that's the first noble truth. First noble truth, so we understand this first noble truth. And so we practice. We practice to get out of this mess that we call samsara. So how to begin our practice? Generosity, dharma, and morality. Generosity, we can give of our time. Some people don't have any money. Some people can't afford to give. But we'll get people come into the temple and they'll pick up a broom and start sweeping. Or maybe they just come in and help in the dining area. They may not be able to bring any food in, but they can help serve it to the monks. Maybe they can help clean the dishes afterwards. This is giving up their time. Because we need to practice generosity. And the reason we practice generosity is because one of the things we're trying to get rid of in meditation is greed. So how do we get rid of greed? We practice being generous. And there's many ways. I mean, a lot of people, you see, people come into the temple, they want to give to the oldest monk, or they want to, because they think, I'm going to get the most merit if I give it to the old fellow, because he's obviously been a monk longer than anybody else, It actually doesn't work like that, But the Buddha says that, a wise monk is not necessarily the oldest monk. It could be the youngest monk. The wise monk could be somebody who doesn't practice. He's just been a monk for years. Whereas you might have a young fellow who's been a monk for a month and kind of racing up through the jhanas, heading for enlightenment. So he actually might be the monk to give to. But people like to race around and it's like, I've got to give it to this monk. He's the most senior monk in the temple. Which is actually a wrong understanding. Doesn't mean to say you're not allowed to give to the old monk, but you might be giving for the wrong reason. We have to watch why we give. We've got to be very careful. But we practice generosity. Now sometimes, I say like, you see a beggar at the side of the road with a polystyrene cup. You've got a few ringgit that you can afford to give away, give it to him. Don't go past, get a job. or the classic is like, oh no, I don't give to beggars, it's their karma to be a beggar. What? You've come across as beggars, your karma to help them. No, it's his karma, I can't interfere with his karma. Oh, don't fancy your karma in your next life. You're going to have nothing and you're going to wonder why nobody gives you anything. So, now we get attached to all of our possessions. And it's my money, it's my car, it's my food, and we don't want to share it with anybody. Mine. We're very, very greedy. And often we're taught to be greedy. I mean, my mother always used to say, charity begins at home. Help yourself before you help anybody else. She wouldn't say, I mean, if I wanted to borrow money off of my mother, she'd draw up a contract. Which would include the interest rate. Just trying to teach you fiscal responsibility. Tight woman. But we don't want to share with anybody, so we practice, giving dharma. As I say, it doesn't have to be actual monetary dharma. It can be our time. We're starting to sweep away the leaves. The job of sweeping has begun. But dharma has to be done with the right attitude. You've got to be very careful because some people it becomes almost transactional. I'll give you this and you give me that. And that's wrong giving. You're supposed to give with a joyous heart. I remember when I first went to Thailand, I was when we used to do arms round, people would put food into a bowl and we'd walk on. Cool, that's fine, that's the way it should be. So of course you get to Thailand and they come and they put food into your bowl and you walk on and they're like, where's he going? Because in Thailand we're speaking Yata, Vari, Waha, Pura, Pari, Purenti. That's what it takes forever. Gotta do this chant every time somebody puts something into your alms bowl. Takes you all day. You're chanting all the time. And it's like, and actually that's wrong giving. They should not expect the monk to chant. That's not what they're supposed to give. You're supposed to give with a joyous heart, expecting nothing in return. Of course you do get something in return because of the fact that you have given to the monk. If you expect the monk to chant for you, it's become transactional. And so in actual fact, you give the monk the food, the monk gives you the chant, everything's cancelled out. There's no merit left. Used it up. Gone. Just went out. Wrong giving. Wrong way of giving. So we give expecting nothing in return. I kind of learned that with some of my friends. Lend me $10, yeah, no worries. I'll never see that again. So I learned that quite quickly. Even when we give thinking I will accrue merit, it's wrong giving. You're giving wanting to attain merit. The leaves keep falling. Time to get back to the sweeping. We give because we want to give. Yes, you will accrue merit, but we shouldn't give thinking I'm going to accrue merit. Wrong giving. I'm giving food to that monk because I want to. And you should never ever regret what you gave. This is why the Buddha is very clear. The Buddha says not to give more than you can afford, because that's just stupid. If your kids are going to go hungry because you're giving everything to the monks, that's wrong giving. You don't do that. You have to look after your family. So you can't be giving the monks everything. That's not something the Buddha would approve of. And of course, you're going to regret doing that. Wrong giving. You're giving with regret. I wish I could take that back. I wish I hadn't have given that much. You're giving with the wrong heart. You're supposed to give with a joyous heart. So always be very careful about what you give to the monks or what you give to the Sangha. Make sure you can afford to give what you're giving. I remember one day I was doing alms round. It was in Sri Lanka, and a little girl, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years old, signalled me to come over. So I opened up my alms bowl. She was kneeling on the ground. She opened her hand. She had nothing in it. And you know what? It really touched my heart. She had given her love. She had nothing material to offer me, but she still wanted to offer something. And that was the best thing that went into my alms bowl on that particular day. It was absolutely nothing, because that nothing came with a whole lot of love. That was what I would call right giving. That was quite amazing. And so we do, because we see people, sometimes they just go over the top. You think, you can't really afford that. And you don't want to see the lay people going hungry because they're giving you all their food. It's not what it's about. So be careful how you give. And the mind that you have when you give. And so we've begun the practice of dana, and of course we're trying to keep the 5 precepts, or to the best of our ability. Because every time we break the precepts, more leaves falling. And get that broom back out. It's kind of like a fog comes rolling in sometimes. It's very easy. Once we start to break the precepts, so I'm not talking about the odd accidental breaking of the precepts, which can happen. I'm talking about when we go, it doesn't matter. As soon as we start saying it doesn't matter, then the whole lot start to cascade down. And it's like, a fog rolling in from the sea. Once it starts, there's no holding it back. It can take a long time for that fog to lift. So you've got to be really careful with the precepts. We're not constantly running around. And it's like, when we were talking about entertainment before, if you go to the circus or to the fair, and you're bombarded by everything, aren't you? I mean, they play all these arcades. They have all this music playing, and bells and whistles and everything. Get your attention. You got all the rides, all these clever, wacky rides that are designed to scare the living daylights out of you. It's like, I've got to go on that. I've got to go on that. So you're just bombarded. You got food stalls here, there, and everywhere. And you've got all these smells, all these sounds. It's absolutely bombard you. Falling leaves, lots and lots of falling leaves. So, that sort of thing. It's like, actually that's like a storm coming. everything gets flooded. And our minds get flooded with all these desires. And when we get flooded with all these desires, it becomes almost impossible to practice the Dharma. Because we can't settle the mind down. There's too many things taking place. One of the monks said to me, one morning, he said, we could just chop the trees down. I said, that would solve the problem. He was joking. And I said to him, I said, yeah, you could. I said, but that wouldn't be enough. I said, no good cutting the tree down. I said, you've got to rip it out by the roots. He said, if you cut the tree down, we usually, you cut a tree down, we leave a stump, don't we, above the ground, because we don't tend to. Well, before long, you get little bits growing out the side of the tree. I know what you call it here, we call them suckers back home. These little suckers start to come up. And before you know it, what grows on these suckers? Leaves. And eventually these leaves will get big enough to start falling off the tree. So it's not good enough just to cut it down, you've got to rip it out by the roots. You've got to make sure you get all those roots out, otherwise the tree will grow again. So we can see that we've got to be really, really careful when we go on with this. When we get rid of the roots, the tree can't grow. The tree can't grow. This is what we call Nibbana. We've actually attained Nibbana. So, but we have to be careful. When we start in our meditation, sometimes these falling leaves can cause us to become a little bit defeatist. What's the point? Thoughts keep arising. Sometimes there's a whole bunch of thoughts keep arising. It's a lovely term, papancha. It's like a cascade of thoughts. And so you've got your big pile of leaves in the tree, and the wind starts to blow, and the leaves are just dancing all over the place. So we can decide that we're wasting our time and going to have a cup of tea, or we can just persevere and we do battle with the leaves. So we understand sometimes that there's a wind blowing. So when I come downstairs and there's a wind blowing, I understand that there's a wind blowing. But I'm still going to try and sweep. No matter how much the wind is blowing, I'm going to attempt to sweep it up. Even if it's a complete and utter waste of time, I know I put in the effort. And often that's just enough to know that I persevered. And even though it doesn't look like I achieved anything, I can give myself a pat on the shoulder and say, well, at least you gave it your best. And maybe a little later the wind might die down and I can have another go at another stage. If I don't have another go, there's just going to be more leaves falling. And the more I leave it, the more leaves are going to be on the ground, the more difficult it is for me to get those leaves swept up. So this afternoon, when we go off to practice again, just want you to remember that if the leaves are falling, the leaves are falling. Persevere with it. We will, in the end, come out winners. So the Savo, I just wish you all the best in your practice, and we will get back together at some time. I don't know what time we'll be due back together. At 4:30. Yeah, if you come back in here at 4:30, and we'll have another Dharma talk, and we'll follow that off with a Q&A session before we call it quits. So they're serving refreshments at between 4 to 4:30 p.m. I've got no idea where that is, but they're serving refreshments. If you ask Sister Bodhi, I'm sure she'll be able to tell you where that's taking place. Okay? So before we go, any questions? No? Yeah.
Sleepiness is also falling leaves.
Sleepiness? Oh yeah, that's lying down in the leaves, man. Yeah. It's a hindrance. It's one of the 5 hindrances is liking, disliking, drowsiness, distraction. That's the papancha. That's where you get a whole bunch of thoughts coming one after the other, and doubt. So sleepiness, you've got sloth and torpor. So yeah, it's definitely falling leaves. So we just battle through it. The truth of the matter though is occasionally sometimes you just got to say to yourself, I'm just too damn tired. Maybe you actually do sometimes need to just sleep. That can become a fact of life. But we have to be very careful because our mind's quite clever at telling us that we need to sleep. Just because it doesn't want to do its task. Okay? Well, that's correct, yeah. 10 o'clock, yeah. 10 o'clock I'm doing a Dharma talk on the 4 Satipatthanas tomorrow morning. So have you read your Satipatthana Sutta? Yes. Because I'm not doing it from that one. I'm doing the Satipatthana Samyutta. Not the Satipatthana Sutta, I'm doing the Samyutta. Alright, so we'll go and have a break. And meet up at, what did I say, 4:30? Yeah, 4:30 back here. Me and Sister Bodhi.
Brother and sisters, anybody still want Kit Kat?